It's 4 a.m. and I've been awake for 52 hours. I'm not at Burning Man. I've actually just arrived home from work. I'm about to nod off to sleep, but my phone rings again. And I need to be on my game straight away because it's Eric, a first-year doctor working alone in rural Australia. He's ringing me, he says, because he's got a patient with him who he thinks needs urgent surgery. The scan of his chest, he says, looks kind of funny. We can't deploy a skilled airlift retrieval team for a patient with a diagnosis of funny, I tell Eric. So I ask him if he can send me a snapshot of the scan. He does just that, and thankfully it looks entirely unremarkable. I ring him back, and perhaps because I'm just completely exhausted, I ignore the quiver of uncertainty in his voice. I just tell him with all the conviction in the world, listen mate, there's nothing wrong with this scan. This patient certainly doesn't need to be flown over tonight. Send him over by road, and I'll see him in the morning. And I fall asleep before I even hang up practically. The following morning I walk into work and I arrive pretty much at the same time as the patient does. I sit down on the computer and I open up the scan. I start scrolling through the images, and what I see is pretty remarkable. Not only does this patient have a dissected aorta, which means his aortic wall has split into two, but he's actually leaking blood from it. I whip out my phone. The picture Eric sent me doesn't quite capture the pathology. It's only evident a few frames later. I panic. This guy needs surgery, but he needed it hours ago. I run over to meet him. I want to whip out my scalpel there and then to get going. I feel horrible, but I can't. His name's Jack. He's got this shiny bald head, flanked by unruly grey curls, and he's got this fantastic moustache sitting on top of a very nearly toothless grin. And he's meant to be fasting, but he's lying on his back, eating peanut M&Ms, which are perched on his stomach. And I can't blame him because they're my favourite, and he offers me one. And he says, "Oh, g'day, David. Boy, am I glad to see you. Eric told me you're the man." We lock eyes and we shake hands, and we hold onto each other's hand for what feels like an uncomfortably long time. And I say back at him, "Hardly the man, Jack. In fact, I've made a bit of a mistake." And those were the last words that Jack heard. And it was the funniest feeling ever, but his hand went limp in mine, and he let off a little bit of a groan as he tried to say something but couldn't. And behind me, I see on the monitor his blood pressure goes from 70 to 30 to 0. And people run from everywhere to pound on his chest, but I know it's futile because his aorta is almost certainly ruptured, and it was all because of my mistake. The couldas and the shouldas of that night with Jack still keep me up. But it was only because of Jack that this year, a colleague and I developed a deep learning model that could diagnose that exact emergency, aortic dissection, and recommend a treatment plan within seconds. Had we had that tech then, Jack would have been flown to safety and had his life saved. Tech like that is on the verge of transforming how we deliver healthcare. Without even seeing you guys, let alone laying a hand on you, I can diagnose and treat any number of health conditions. One Silicon Valley VC even went so far as to say, the next generation of doctors will be found in the computer science department. But while I'm up late at night thinking about Jack, I also can't help but wonder, what does that mean for the future of medicine? Can we really just distill our patients down to processes of pattern detection and image recognition? And when you or your loved ones are at your sickest and most vulnerable, who do you want by your side? Man or machine? Only a few years before that, I was sitting in the doctor's office with the person I loved most, my little sister Jackie. waiting to see the doctor, waiting for a diagnosis, and waiting for a treatment plan. And I can't help but wonder how that scene would have looked had we encountered the machine, the AI oncologist, as it were. Because, as I'm sure many of you know, any good AI needs data inputs. And these were Jackie's. Age, 16. Symptoms, pelvic pain and bloating. Findings at operation, large malignant mass. Now, if all that matters is the right diagnosis and the right treatment recommendation, we can write the code today for that AI oncologist, and it would be a 5-minute consultation. Diagnosis, large malignant tumour. Treatment, 12 months of chemotherapy and radiotherapy. Prognosis, uncertain. And you know, even if we were to pay a premium for, say, the extra special AI oncologist, who could perhaps answer some questions, because that day Jackie had plenty, we could even do that too. Like, AI oncologist, am I going to lose my hair? And how am I going to look? Well, yes, Jackie, you will. You'll look bald. Or, AI oncologist, am I going to be able to have children after all this chemotherapy and radiotherapy, I mean? Not a chance. But I'm not an AI gynecologist. I could refer you to them. And as the tears stream down our faces, even a pretty basic AI oncologist could be equipped with computer vision to sense those tears and then perhaps robotically dispense us with a tissue. But is that really the kind of care that we want? Because in reality, what happened in that moment and what we needed had nothing to do with a diagnosis and a treatment. We didn't need some fancy clinical decision support software. What we needed and what we got was for the very human oncologist to stand up, walk around the table, put his arm around Jackie, and say that everything would be okay, in spite of what any algorithm ever said. That he and his amazing team of compassionate and caring human beings would be with her every step of the way. Without a doubt, AI in healthcare is going to touch all of our lives. It's going to reduce medical error, it's going to improve access to care, and it's going to save lives. But being a good doctor is about so much more than a diagnosis and a treatment. It requires a touch, a warmth, and a judgment that even the best technologist will never be able to replicate. When you or your loved ones are at your sickest and most vulnerable and scared out of your minds, it's always going to matter that there's a human who cares by your side. So, as we build amazing machines to make all of you safer, it's not going to be the amazing computer scientists who become the great doctors of the future. It's going to be the amazing human beings, like my sister Jackie, who defied the statistics and has just graduated from medical school, who possess the skills, who possess those skills that are just way too difficult to code for. Thank you very much, guys.